Alright, hello everyone and welcome to our 8th Scratch lesson. Now it's been a long journey down this Scratch track, but let's get further into it. So to recap a little bit on what things we've covered so far in this course, we started off by just introducing you guys to the Scratch environment. We covered basic ways to have your sprite move and even advanced ways to have them jump, glide, and do other sorts of actions. We then started talking about events and then transitioned into more concrete programming topics like loops, variables, and conditions. And last week, we started talking about functions and how you can have them have certain blocks of code and then use that in your main script or main code for greater efficiency or faster runtime. So this week we're gonna kind of extend off of that and we're gonna apply that knowledge to add a new function to our topic. So what we're gonna do is we're going to add something called a speed up function. Now, if you don't remember what our game looks like at the moment, this is what it looks like right now. We have a ball coming out our Scratch and it just jumps. And you get a point if you jump over it, and if you don't get a point. And it keeps doing that for a certain amount of times. But eventually, we want our sprite game to get harder. We want it to become more challenging as the user goes on, so it doesn't just stay the same difficulty. So we're going to add a function today that has the ball move faster and faster after each time that it goes around. And this is going to be called a speed up function. And so I'm going to help you guys and walk you guys through coding this and adding it to your game so that hopefully when you guys create your own versions of the game or any sort of Scratch project that you want, you can use what you've learned to add new features and make your game harder and more challenging and more interactive for the user. So we're going to add the speed up function. Now the first step we want to do is add the ball's speed variable. So in the variables tab, we're going to click make a variable and we're going to call the new variable speed. And so actually we're going to call it ball speed. So we call this ball speed and we create OK for all sprites to make sure you have that selected. And once this is created, we want to initialize it. So at the beginning, once you add a variable, you always want to make sure, especially if it's a variable that has numerical values, in this case, the score is a numerical value because it counts 1, 2, as whatever number the score is. The ball speed is also going to have a numerical value. So when we start, we want to set it to 4, and I'll explain why in just a second. But we're going to add this block right here that says set ball speed to, and we're just going to change this 0 to 4. So for understanding purposes, the ball speed variable is essentially going to represent the glide time. So the larger the time it takes to glide, the slower the object moves, and the shorter time it takes to glide from point A to point B, the faster the object moves. And currently, when we set the ball speed to 4, we're setting the glide time to 4, and you'll see where we implement this later on in our code. So once we've added this function and set the ball speed to 4, we want to modify the move function. So we have it set to 4 when the green flag is clicked. You could essentially put this anywhere you want. Now we're going to go and click on the ball sprite, and we're going to modify the script for the ball. So how exactly are we going to do this? Well, currently from last week, you can see that we have the script continued. We have the move function where the ball moves in a loop 10 times from the side of the screen to the sprite. And it repeats the cycle again and again until it's finished the 10 iterations. So we are going to we're going to change this 4 you see right here to the ball speed variable. So all you want to do is click and drag this ball speed over here. So again, I said we set this to 4. Now you may be wondering why I set it to 4. Well, if you saw the value over here before I added ball speed, you would know that it was 4 seconds. So it's going to start off going the same speed that it already is. This is essentially going to be the slowest speed. So once you click play, right now nothing new has changed. So far, we're just gliding a constant speed to the sprite. So it's going to come at the same pace again and again. And we can even play it if you want to see how this really works. So the sprite says good morning, it jumps, the ball speed is 4. And now we're not incrementing the ball speed anywhere, or decreasing the ball speed in this case, but nothing is happening at the moment. It's going at the same pace that it usually would. Now, this may get a little bit confusing because in this case, the ball speed is actually referring to the glide time, like I said before, which means instead of increasing the ball speed, we're going to decrease the time it takes. So the speed overall will increase, but the value of the variable will not. It will decrease because it represents glide time. So when the ball comes at the sprite, we want, after each time, we want the seconds to be shorter and shorter and shorter. So if it starts off with 4 seconds, maybe next we want it to do 3.5, and then 3, and then 2.5, and then 2, and so on, until it's super fast or the user reaches the end of the game and they win. So now we're gonna just move on. And one more thing is, over here you see these check marks, and these check marks kind of just show you which variables are visible to the user when they're playing. So over here you can see the score and the ball speed variables are visible, and if you just uncheck it, it goes away. For now, we're going to keep it checked just so we can see when we start to modify it a little bit, we can see how it changes, how it increases or decreases, and by what value after each time the ball goes around. So we are going to just keep it there for now, but you don't really have to. And the score is there so the user can see how many points they've scored without actually physically counting every single point that they get. So we are going to now move on to create the speed up function. So within the ball sprite's code, we want to make sure that it's within the ball sprite, because the speed up function is directly applying to the ball, not to the sprite. It's impacting the movement of the ball and how fast it goes and comes around again and again. So we want to make sure that it's in the same code. And again, if you remember, I mentioned this in the previous video, but if you have a variable, we can make it visible to all sprites so that you can access a certain variable from the cat sprite or the ball sprite or the cloud sprite. But if functions don't really work the same way, they're only visible to, or they apply to the specific variable or sprite that you put them under. So if you have a function under the ball's code, then it's only going to apply to the movement of the ball. So if we have the function heat move right here, we go to the scratch sprite, and we see 2 other functions, but we don't see the move function. And you don't have access to the move function because it doesn't apply to this sprite. So once we have this all set, we're going to move on to physically adding the speed up function. And just like we did last time, we're going to click make a block to add a function. We're going to call this speed up. And then we're not going to play with any of this yet, and just click OK. And now we have a speed up function. I'm just going to move this a little bit downwards. And so now we want to change the ball speed, aka the time it takes to glide from the right end of the screen to the sprite every time it turns. So what we're going to do is we're going to create the speed up function, and all this is going to do is decrease the ball speed, essentially the time it takes. So if it starts at 4, it's going to decrease by, let's say, 0.2 is a reasonable amount. So we're going to create the speed up function, and we're going to start like this. We're going to modify the variable, and so we're going to say change ball speed by. Now recall we want to change it and decrease it, not increase it. So we want the number to be negative, and the value we want to decrease it by is 0.2. Again, I play around with these numbers a lot when planning these videos, so if you want to increase or decrease the number to however you would like it, or you would like your game to be, feel free to do so. It's all up to you, but we're just going to stick to 0.2 for now. Again, you can change it if you want, but this is what we'll use. So now that we've changed the ball speed by 2, we want to do something else, and we're going to add another variable in a little bit that is going to change the speed of the jump in a second, and I'll explain why we want to do that. But first, let's implement the speed up function in our code. So something we talked about last week was not only do you have to make the function and the blocks that go under it like we did here, you have to make sure you implement it in the main script. So when it can be in the main script, or you can even implement it in another function. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the speed up function within the move function within the loop. So essentially what we're telling the program to do is when the green flag is clicked, we're going to reset the ball over here to the right end of the screen and wait 2 seconds. Then we want it to move. So when it moves, it's going to do this 10 times. It's going to go to this position. It's going to go to this position. It's going to glide here. Then it's going to speed up. So it's going to increase the time for the next iteration. So it's going to go here and it's going to glide using the new ball speed. Because remember, we changed the ball speed by 0.2. We decreased it by 0.2. So it goes to this position, it glides, and it speeds up. So the speed changes, essentially the time changes, and then you go back and do it again and again and again. So this may be a little bit confusing for you to understand, but let's just click play and see what happens right now. So we have it say good morning, the ball comes, we jump. Now the ball's going to come a little bit faster. It's going to get hard to tell, but as we go more and more into the game, you'll start to see how this works. So we just keep jumping, and if you look at the value of the ball speed, you can see that it's decreasing by 0.2 every single time, just like we set it to. And it's getting a little bit faster and faster each time. Now it's getting harder and harder to jump. And eventually, when it becomes super low, it's going to be extremely hard to jump. And we're going to just change this to 20. I just realized that it only goes to 10. We're going to change this to 20 for now. And we can do this again. But you guys saw how the ball gets faster and faster every time the ball comes around and the Scratch has to jump. I even missed a couple points in the last game because I wasn't able to jump over the ball in time. And this is going to pose a real issue because we want the user to have a chance at succeeding, not only make the game hard, but achievable, right? And so if the jump speed isn't fast enough for the balls, as they come faster and faster, you're going to need this cat to jump faster and faster. So we're going to need to modify the jump speed as well. As you can see, it's getting super fast and I can't jump over every single ball anymore, which is why we need to modify that. And another thing is the cloud stopped moving. So we're going to just double this to 10. We just want to make sure it lasts throughout the whole game. And go back to the ball script. So we want to change the jump speed. So what we're going to do is do something a little bit similar to what we did with the ball speed. We're going to create another variable called jump speed. And we're going to make sure it's for all sprites and click OK. And now what we want to do with jump speed is at the beginning, we want to make sure we set jump speed to 0.75. Now you can take a moment to try to figure out where this number came from, but it came from right here. So if you look at the jump function and you see the amount of time it takes for the sprite to go up and to go down, this is 0.75 seconds. So like the ball speed represented the glide time for the ball to move from the right to the left end of the screen, the jump speed is not going to represent the exact jump speed, but instead the time it takes for the cat to move up and move down when jumping. So we're going to take this, and at the beginning, we want to always initialize whatever variables we use so the program knows what value to start with. So we're going to say set jump speed to, and then make sure it says jump speed, not ball speed. And we want to change this to 0.75. Again, we want to start off with this value, right? We want to start off with these numbers. So now we're going to take this and make this the jump speed right here, so that it can be modified. Now that we've put all this information into variables, we can modify the values in it. And it won't be the same exact speed every time, but it'll get faster and faster when we want it to. So now that we've done this, we've initialized the variables and we've made sure that it's used in the code so it actually has a visual effect and we can see how it changes, we want to do something when the speed up function occurs. We not only want to speed up the ball speed, in other words, make the glide time shorter, but we want to speed up the jump speed, make it jump faster, and shorten the time it takes for the sprite to jump. So what we're going to do is add a block right under ball speed that changes the jump speed by a certain value. Now, like the ball speed, the jump speed also refers to the time it takes for the sprite to perform a certain action. In this case, it's gliding up and down. So we want this to decrease as well, because the shorter time it takes for the cat to do something, the faster it does it. So we want to change the jump speed by a value, and this value is going to be negative because we want it to decrease. And we're going to change it by negative 0.035. Now this may seem like a really small number, and that's okay. We're starting with a really small number to begin with. We're starting with 0.75, and we want it to decrease by very little amounts, but enough so that when the balls do come really, really fast at the cat has sufficient time to jump and dodge those balls. Obviously, it will get harder towards the end, and it'll be a lot harder for the cat to keep jumping, but it won't be impossible, and that's what we want to make sure happens. So, like with all of the other numbers that I've been using, I've been experimenting and making sure, and just to see which numbers work best with which scenarios, and I came across this number as I was testing a bunch of different numbers. Again, you can choose whatever numbers you guys think would be better. You can choose a higher number to make the jump speed go up much faster and make the game easier, or you can choose a lower number to make the jump speed decrease slower and make the game much harder. It's completely up to you, but just play around with it and see what you come across and what you like. So we now added to our speed up function. Not only are we changing the ball speed by negative 0.2 or decreasing the time by 0.2 seconds every time the ball comes around, but we're changing the jump speed by negative 0.035. In other words, decreasing the time it takes for the sprite to jump up and down. So again, like I talked about the visibility of the variables before, right now it's visible on the screen right over here, the three variables and their values. Obviously this is not necessary, and in fact it might be a little bit better if the user didn't see the ball speed and the jump speed values, just because it seems like unnecessary information for a user. It's here for us now to see the effect of our code and see how it works. So not only can we see how the balls move faster and faster and how the sprite jumps up faster and faster, but we can see the physical values that it's changing to. So everything has been implemented now, and let's take a look at how this works. So we're gonna just go ahead and click play. It says good morning. We see the initial values for the ball speed and the jump speed is 4 and 0.75, and now it's decreasing and decreasing again, and it'll continue decreasing every time this happens. And so once we get further and further into the game, everything's going to start happening a lot faster. In other words, the jump speed is going to be much faster, and the ball is going to come at the sprite much faster. And so as you can see, it's already getting a lot faster and harder too. I don't think I'll make it to 20. Well, you're gonna miss them here and there, but essentially, like, you can see how the game works and how it becomes really fast. And obviously, there are some things we still need to work out, how the balls come really fast at the end, but you can just play around with it. You don't have to repeat it 20 times. You can change it to 15. In fact, I'll probably do that right there. And you can just play around with it and see how things work. And let me just, okay. So that's all I had to talk about for today. We got the chance to apply the knowledge of functions that we touched upon last class. Last class, we changed some basic movements and transitioned them into functions like the move or add point functions. And now we added a completely new function that adds a completely new feature to our game. And it makes it much harder and much more interactive for users to use. So I hope you guys enjoy this new lesson, and I hope you guys continue learning with Scratch. I'll see you guys in our next video, and I hope you have a great day.